on the channel, let's return to the Kyle Peterson Top 10. In today's video, we got an all-timer. We got my top 10 favorite Shawn Michaels figures of all time.
And the spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever!
Welcome everyone, Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for another edition of the Kyle Peterson Top 10. A Thursday tradition here on the channel is every single Thursday we're counting down my top 5 and occasionally, like today, my top 10 favorites of something. And today, Shawn Michaels Top 10 in honor of 32,000 subscribers here on this very YouTube channel. Thank you to all those that have subscribed, and we keep on coming around, and 33,000 is up next here. That's my favorite number, so we got to do something special about 33. We'll see what that is. But today it's Shawn Michaels, and this is one of those ones you kind of avoid. Sometimes when you're doing these top 5s, top 10s, Shawn Michaels, The Rock, Hogan's, the Macho Man's, man, those are the tough ones to do. Rey Mysterio. There's a lot of guys that have been around for a long time that have had a lot of figures. And now, as usual, this is my list. Make sure you put your list in the comments down below. As nobody's list is right, nobody's list is wrong. It's your list at the end of the day. But like I said, very difficult to do some of these superstars that have had toys going all the way back to the Hasbro days. Shawn Michaels has had a ton of figures, especially during the Jakks days, if you guys remember those days at all. But a lot to choose through, a lot to sift through, and maybe a lot of surprises in this list for me. I am by no means the biggest Shawn Michaels fan in the world. I've always liked Shawn Michaels. I was a Rockers guy. I enjoyed his first run breaking up from the Rockers, and of course I followed him through everything. I was always more of a Bret Hart guy, but I liked Shawn Michaels for what he was, and of course has followed basically his whole career all the way back from the AWA. So I've seen a lot of Shawn Michaels, almost everything he's ever done in his career for the most part. So definitely an interesting list, I think, my list. I think there'll be a lot of surprises. A lot of people will say, what? Why is that on your list? No different than any other of my lists, I guess, there. But definitely a tough list to do, and I had to go through and really sort through all my figures and look, okay, what are the top 10 favorites? And I feel like I got my perfect list. Obviously, these things could change a year from now. We might have 5 new Shawn Michaels figures to really upset the apple cart on this one a little bit. But a lot of good figures from Shawn Michaels over the year. Definitely way more than 10 really good figures for Shawn Michaels over the years. But it's always fun. It's always fun trying to put these in orders. That is the hard part of all this, but also, like I said, the fun part. So just remember, this is my list. Put your list in the comments, and let's kick it off at number 10. We kick off the Shawn Michaels Top 10 with a figure that's probably on nobody's list but mine. We're going all the way back to Jakks. We're going to Ring Rage. We're going to Ring Rage Series 17.5 for the real chest hair, yes, real feel chest hair, Shawn Michaels. And I joke about this figure all the time, but Jakks, they gave us a real fur Georgia Animal Steel, as we do remember, but they also gave us this Shawn Michaels with the real fur chest hair. And I joke about it in a lot of videos. Man, Mattel, give us that real fur. And a lot of people are like, are you crazy? Are you nuts? And I do it jokingly, but it's also tongue-in-cheek. I love companies, Jakks in this instance, that takes chances and does something a little bit different. It's very easy to be safe and do the same things over and over. And it's one of those things where Jakks, you learn from things. You go things, hey, we got a lot of figures. Let's throw this against the wall. Let's see if it sticks. Let's see if it resonates with the consumer. Obviously, it didn't. They didn't do it very many more times, so it didn't stick. But it was a chance they took, and I'm here for companies that want to take chances, and in those chances is what moves business forward. Now, maybe I'm getting a little too deep in it about real fur chest hair on this Shawn Michaels, but I always thought it was just so funny, so off the wall, so crazy, so iconic that I still remember this. And when I think about Shawn Michaels figures like I do for this, this always comes to mind for me as this real fur chest hair. So just absolutely gross, absolutely crazy, but I would love to see Mattel, for a throwback nostalgia purposes, one of those winks to longtime fans, something like that, do something like this one of these days. I think it would just be really funny. It would at least pop me at the end of the day. But coming in at number 10, like I said, probably the only one with it in a top 10 list, 17.5 Ring Rage, Jakks Pacific. We're feeling fine at number 9, and number 9 Shawn Michaels figure. Once again, we go back to Jakks Pacific. We go to Jakks Ruthless Aggression Series 42 or Jakks Adrenaline Series 39. Pick your poison there, Jakks style. We go to the Shawn Michaels, I guess God-loving Shawn Michaels, Heaven and Hell Shawn Michaels, of course, from the Undertaker match. Now, this is one maybe not on a lot of people's list either, and at the time when this came out, I was buying my classic superstars, but I wasn't buying a whole lot. I was dabbling. I was dabbling in the Ruthless Aggression, Adrenalines, Ring Rages, things like that. But this is one of those figures I had to have because it's different. It's totally different. It was so different from all the Shawn Michaels we were getting at the time. This one always sticks out. I remember seeing it at Toys R Us. There's also a 1 of 500 Chase edition of this one as well. Never had that one, but that one was with the real strap, real leather strap title belt with it. But this is so different and so iconic, such a big match at the time, and feels so different than a lot of Shawn Michaels we ever got from all the toy lines. It's just one of those ones that nostalgia gets you and it really sticks out, and that's why it's on my top 10 list. Coming in here at number 9. Next up, we're feeling great at number 8, and we're going back to Jakks Pacific. We're going to Jakks WrestleMania Series 22, Series 1 for a Shawn Michaels figure that I would love for Mattel to take a stab at. Honestly, right now for Mattel, this is probably my most wanted Shawn Michaels figures. And once again, it goes back to it feels different, it's different. Shawn Michaels, a guy that gets so many figures over the years, now we're getting something a little bit different like the prior two, and these are the ones that end up standing out. And what is it from WrestleMania 22 Series 1? It is Shawn Michaels as Hulk Hogan. Remember, of course, on Raw, he dressed up as the Hulkster. I think it was like kind of a Larry King-like interview or something like that. Wasn't that like kind of the skit going on? But it is Shawn, a Hulkamania shirt, Hulkamania bandana, the fake brother mustache going there, the long blonde hair. Just so cool, but so different. And like I said, different sticks out a lot, especially with a guy like Shawn Michaels, where you get so many figures that are fairly similar, different pants, things like that. When you get something like this, it is so different, it just definitely sticks out. And I would love to see this, hopefully, from Mattel. I think Mattel could do this even better, and it would probably take the place of this one in my top 10 list, possibly. But I love that Jakks was not scared to do things like this, just like the Hannibal John Cena figure, the real fur chest hair one we just talked about. Totally different, and I really do like this figure all these years later, and that's why it's on my top 10 list, coming in at number 8. Next up in the top 10 list, we're at number 7. And these top 10, top 5 lists to me they're my favorite characters, maybe the favorite figure, maybe nostalgia. There's a lot of different things that come into play with some of these lists. And sometimes it's not the best looking figure, the best figure of all time. There's more to it. And that brings us to number 7 here. And this one was my first ever Shawn Michaels figure I ever owned in my life. What is it? Hasbro Series 2 Tag Teams with partner Marty Jannetty, of course, Shawn Michaels as the Rocker Shawn Michaels. Man, oh man, to bring me back to those early Hasbro days, just a fun time to be a kid, fun time to be a collector. I still will never forget the first time going to Toys R Us, having no idea Hasbro's were coming out, and it was like the gates of heaven opened up right there for me, and oh my gosh, I can't believe what I'm seeing, because at the time, I'm just playing LJNs all day long, and here it is, new figures, smaller, different scale, totally different. Got that beautiful 80s, 90s, I guess it was 80s, late 80s, early 90s look to the packaging. Just really blew me away. And then from that day on, I was playing LJNs and I was playing Hasbro's. Okay, I'm sick of playing Hasbro's, go back to LJNs. I was back and forth. So really enjoyed all of that. Just an epic time to be a collector. And this Shawn Michaels by no means is the greatest Shawn Michaels. We had much better Hasbro Shawn Michaels to come. But man, to get a tag team like the Rockers, even if they were a jumper, which I was not a fan of at all, it was just so fun because the Rockers, a main team of a childhood Kyle, of course, in that time in the WWF. And this really the first Shawn Michaels figure I ever had. And for the longest time, the only Shawn Michaels figure I ever had. So definitely iconic. Almost everybody had the Rockers, especially back in that time frame. Everybody had the Rockers somewhere in their fig fed. Just an iconic Shawn Michaels figure, and that's why this one's coming in at number 7 in my top 10 list. We've hit the number 6 spot in our top 10 Shawn Michaels countdown, and for the first time in this countdown, we go to Mattel. And I will tell you, this won't be the last time we go to Mattel, but we're going to Mattel, and we're going all the way back to 2015. Oh, what a time to be alive, 2015. we're bringing up the ringside collectible exclusive Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels from his first kind of Intercontinental title run. This is early Shawn Michaels when he broke off from the Rockers, of course. Just an all-time classic Shawn Michaels figure. One of my favorite designs, gear, whatever you want to call it, Shawn Michaels ever had in his entire career. So iconic, of course, me being younger, soaking all this stuff up like a sponge back then. Absolutely did love figures like this. Love the Intercontinental title belt. Love the glasses. Love the look. Love the gear. Just a beautiful representation of this era of Shawn Michaels. Now, we did get this recently, a kind of a run back on this one in the Legends line. Similar, but not quite the same. We also got a Flashback Series Walmart a few years back as well. A little bit different as well, not quite the same. This one still holds the cake for me for this representation from Mattel as far as Shawn Michaels go. And that's why it's coming in at number 6 in the top 10 countdown. We've hit the halfway point in our top 10 countdown of Shawn Michaels. You got your list together. Make sure you put it in the comments down below. But here we are at number 5. And once again, we go to Mattel. We go to Elite Series 19 or the Lost Legend Wave for Shawn Michaels, European Champion. Absolutely love this time frame in Shawn Michaels' career. And even as a little kid, I always asked the question, and maybe you asked this question as well. All right, Hulk Hogan, he lost the world title belt to Ultimate Warrior. He lost it to, whatever. Why doesn't he go for the Intercontinental title belt? Maybe he should go to that. Some kids on the old playground would say, well, he's too big for that belt. Well, I was like, I got to think. I do the math. This is, when you're a kid, you're like, world champion probably gets paid the most, but I got to think Intercontinental champion gets paid the second most, so why wouldn't you at least go after that? Or maybe the tag titles or something, Little kids, that's the way you think out there. But ever since I was a little kid, Ric Flair, okay, lost the title. Why doesn't he go for the tag titles? And they actually did a little bit of that in WCW. I remember him and Arn going for the tag titles one time, being so excited, as you didn't see guys win the world title, then go back to lesser titles and back and forth. Didn't happen the way it felt like it should have in my little kid brain. Well, Shawn Michaels did it, of course, being world champion, tag champion. Well, he won the European title, which was, a pretty big step down from the World Heavyweight Championship, but I thought he brought some respectability to the European title, if that makes sense, made it feel bigger than maybe it actually was at the time. Definitely thought that was really cool, and that's what this era of Shawn Michaels represents, and probably my favorite era. I don't know. He's had a lot of good eras, and by no means is he my favorite, as I did say, but I always enjoyed his matches around this time frame. Loved him having the European title. Of course, we know what happened to that later on, but definitely did like this one a whole lot. Just thought it was a very cool figure, and this is still a very cool figure all these years later. I really do think this one holds up. I love the silver and black attack. Love kind of the Knights of the Round Table chainmail going on. I love the head sculpt on it, and of course, the classic European title cannot be beat. So Shawn Michaels, Series 19, Lost Legends, coming in at number 5. Next up in the top 10 list, we're at the number 4 spot, and number 4, very high, of course, and this is a little bit of a controversial one, as when I unboxed this on the channel, a lot of people before I got it, of course, were saying this is the greatest Ultimate Edition of all time, and I was like, it's good, I just don't find it to be the greatest of all time, and at the end of the day, it is your personal preference on these things, as we always do say. But coming in at number 4 for me, the fan takeover, Shawn Michaels, Heartbreak Kid, and I guarantee there's some people that are going to put their list down below in the comments. This will be number 1 for them. And guess what? It's your list. It can be number 1. To me, it's not the most iconic version of Shawn Michaels. I definitely remember it, so it's iconic in some ways. Just not my favorite era, my favorite look of Shawn Michaels. But of course, it is an Ultimate Edition. It is a fairly recently new figure, so it's going to have a lot of bells and whistles. Some of the classic ones going back to Jack's days, things like that, does not have. So this is a fabulous figure. I just don't think it's the greatest Ultimate of all time. There is better Ultimates, at least in my opinion, than this one. But no denying this one is good. Heck, it's number 4 in a top 10 Shawn Michaels video, and Shawn's got 100 plus figures, I'm sure, at this point here. But definitely cool with the soft goods. Not a huge fan of the monkey wrench earrings on this one. Gosh, easily lost. It just haunts me every day that I'm going to lose these things. But they're still hanging in there. I know a lot of people have lost these earrings, and pointer out there, if you are buying this loose, make sure the earrings are there. That's a big one and very easily lost. Wish they were just sculpted in, honestly, there. But definitely an interesting one. It looks like he's going to ride a taxi cab in the 90s. He's going to drive it, going to pick some people up, do his thing. But definitely an all-timer figure in the Ultimate line. Is it the best? Not for me, but for a lot of people, I could see this being number 1. And that's why Shawn Michaels, for me, though, is number 4 in my top 10 list. Dangerously close to the end of the top 10 list as we're at the number 3 spot right now. And once again, we go to Mattel. Once again, we go to the Ultimate Editions. We go to Ultimate Edition Series 4, Shawn Michaels, and possibly his most remembered, maybe his most iconic look of all time. Definitely up for debate, I would have to say. I mean, top 5 at least. But for me, his most iconic, of course, we all remember Survivor Series. We don't need to rehash that. But I always think of this one here. Of course, Jakks Classic Superstars did this outfit multiple times as well. Just a very iconic edition of Shawn Michaels. One of the pivotal points in wrestling history, or at least modern wrestling history, whatever you want to call it. Definitely a big time moment represented in action figure form. And a lot of that brings that so up to the top of the list for me. But like the head scans with this one, like the body style, of course, all the soft goods going on here, the pleather pants, whatever you want to call them, and then the vest as well. Just an iconic looking Shawn Michaels that really is a good figure here, and one a lot of people do have, of course, being a recently released in the last 4 or 5 years. What is time, as we do say. So this Shawn Michaels Ultimate Edition Series 4, an all-timer, and number 3 in my top 10 list. Dangerously close to the end of the list as we're at the number 2 spot, and our number 2 Shawn Michaels is one of those figures that you come across that makes your jaw drop to the floor. When this was first shown, this was first announced, I could not believe what I was seeing. Then I saw it was going to be an exclusive, and I said, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Luckily, it was fairly easy to obtain at the time. Really wish I would have bought 2 back at the time, but I did have 1 mint on card, and later on, just fairly recently in the last year, I finally got a loose one. Well, I unboxed it on the channel at least. But what is it? We're going all the way back to Jakks. We're going to Deluxe Classic Superstars, the Pro Figures exclusive Shawn Michaels. Now, this is one of the greatest figures of all time, especially at the time of release. We had never seen anything like this in the wrestling figure headspace, action figure game, whatever you want to call it at the time, as this was so deluxe compared to the usual stuff we had got. Remember, this is before Mattel. This is many years ago. It's like 14 years ago, 15 years ago. What is time? This one came out, and this was absolutely a game changer. This was one a lot of people had to have. And like I said, Deluxe Classic Superstar. So you had all the deluxe articulation, all the bells and whistles with this one. That was later adopted by Mattel into the Elite line, of course. But soft goods throughout on this one. Beautiful packaging. Of course, the Pro Figures exclusive sticker on there. Just an all-around great figure. But what took this up to the next level was all the title belts that came with it in the package. Of course, you got the Winged Eagle. You got the European title. You got the big gold belt. You got the Intercontinental title belt. And you got the Tag Team title belt. At the time, all title belts Shawn Michaels had in his career. Just really a celebration of all things Shawn Michaels here, especially at that time with all these title belts. And then to take it one step further, I say it all the time on the channel, Jakks Deluxe Classic Superstars title belts are my all-time favorite title belts of any toy line ever. We're even talking about current day Mattel. These are great size, and I love the color on them. They got a lot of color, a lot of pizzazz to them. Just a beautiful title belt. So to get all the title belts with one figure, with a deluxe entrance grade, all that kind of stuff, just hard to top this one. Definitely one that made a lot of collectors' jaws drop, and this is a very pricey figure all these years later. And of course, we've had improvements. We've had this look from Mattel since then. The entrance grates line sticks in my head right away. Definitely cool for Mattel, but man, this one changed the game at the time. And if you were a collector at the time, you knew how cool this figure was. And to me, still cool all these years later, and that's why it's number 2 in my top 10 list. But if this is number 2, what is number 1? Stay tuned. Here we are, we're at the number 1 Shawn Michaels figure of all time as voted by me. Make sure you get your list together. Make sure you put it in the comments down below. And then you made it this far through the list, you might as well like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the old notification bell, as we are doing top 5 and top 10 lists every single Thursday on this channel. And we'd love to have you join us. Next up, 33,000. We got to do something special for that one. Maybe the top 10 Jose Canseco figures of all time in honor of number 33. Or maybe Scottie Pippen, possibly Patrick Patrick Ewing. There's a lot of ways we could go with that one, but we'll see what happens. But we got to finish this one off first. What is the #1 Shawn Michaels figure of all time? Well, once again, it goes to nostalgia. It goes all the way back to Hasbro Series 7 for the Heartbreak Kid. Shawn Michaels, his solo career one, very similar to the ringside one we talked about in this very video, but this is one of those times nostalgia wins out because Shawn Michaels getting a solo career, Shawn Michaels taking off from the split with the Rockers. It just was fun playing with the Rockers, Hasbros, and we talked about that Shawn here. But once they separated, you're like, I can't use that Shawn Michaels for what I want Shawn Michaels to be now. And I actually, in my playing days, used the Rockers as the Rock and Roll Express later on, and we got a solo Marty Jannetty and solo Shawn Michaels. They were Marty and Shawn. That was the Rock and Roll Express. So, got to use your imagination when you're a player out there. You got to get the most of your molds, the most of your toys as a kid as well. But much like series or #5 on this list, this Shawn Michaels hits all the sweet spots. It was my first kind of fandom of Shawn, if you want to call it that. It was him going his ascent up into the major player there, and of course the Intercontinental title belt and all the stuff he ended up turning into. Definitely an iconic time for Shawn Michaels, and a lot of fun playing with this one, having him feud for the Intercontinental title in my playing days, things like that. Of course, Hasbro, one of the greatest lines of all time. For somebody like me, of my age bracket, I could see some, 18, 19, 26-year-old kids saying, Hasbros, man, what are those? They're like Burger King toys or something. I get it, time marches on, but you're nostalgic for what you're nostalgic for. And man, this Hasbro one, definitely an all-timer for me. And this one was started off at #1 for me. When I started putting this together in my head, I said, okay, what's going to be #1, 2? This one pretty much stayed put the whole time. And it's just iconic, fun, nostalgic. It's playing a lot of the hits here for me, and that's why it's coming in at #1. So there it is, the top 10 Shawn Michaels figures as voted by me. You guys remember, put your list in the comments down below. Of course, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of fun stuff everybody tells you to do. And don't forget about the Patreon for early access to videos like this, bonus content, exclusive content, Q&As, pizza reviews, you name it. It's all going on over there, the old Patreon. And Patreon, the best way to support the channel and all the content. You can also support the channel at ProWrestlingTees.com, search Kyle Peterson. And then, of course, social media. I heard it on the X like a young ZZ Top, Sir Paul 64. Of course, over there on X, and then _Kyle_Peterson on Instagram and Threads. So for the top 10 Shawn Michaels figures of all time, I'm Kyle. See you guys all real soon.